Hi everyone, it's Laura here for SugarPea Designs, and in today's video I'm going to show you how to create two different cards using the same set of supplies. For my first card I used this adorable to-go coffee cup from the Mugs and Kisses stamp set by SugarPea Designs. I am stamping it on Nina Solar White 110 pounds cardstock with Memento Tuxedo Black ink, and I will be stamping the image twice because I plan on having a little capo on the front of my card. For my coloring today, I will be using Nuvo alcohol markers. For the first cup, I used markers from the Marina Blues set. So the darker one is number 429, the mid-tone color is 427, and the highlight color is 425. And these markers come in set of 3, so you have your blending family already ready for you, which is really handy. As you can see, I started with my darkest color and I'm adding shadows as if the light was coming from the right side of the images, so that the left part of the images is the darkest one. For the cap and for the little holder, I decided to use some warm grays. These are from the set Pebble Beach and are colors number 497 and 495. And then I blended them towards the white highlight that I left using my Copy Colorless blender. For the second mug, I use colors from the Apricot Ombre set, so these are number 392, 387 and 476. And the reason why I chose this color palette is that I already knew I was going to use a specific paper pad by SugarPea Designs, so that helped me in my choice of colors. I added some shading with warm grays to the cap and the holder of the second coffee cup as well. And then once I was done coloring the images, I die cut them with the coordinating dies to the Mugs and Kisses stamp set, and here they are, absolutely adorable. For my card base, I used papers from the SugarPea Designs Sugar and Spice paper pad. The sheets in this paper pad are already cut to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches, so to the standard US A2 size. And then I did some die cutting to obtain different panels for my card design. This first rectangle here with the rounded corners is part of the SugarPea Designs Heart Journal card die set. I then used the rectangle die in the card front element builder die set to add some stitching detail to this blue striped panel. And lastly, I used the larger die in the zigzag stitched circles die set to cut my last pattern paper. And then I decided that I wanted the circle to hang off the card front a little bit, and in order to trim that extra piece, I used again the stitched rectangle die from the card front element builder die set. You can also glue the circle and trim it with a trimmer, but I prefer to have the continuous stitched pattern all around. And this is why I took an extra step in my die cutting. For my sentiment, I decided to do some heat embossing on vellum, and in order to figure out the position of the sentiment on my vellum strip, I placed all my die cut elements in my MISTI in the way I want them to be on the final card, so that I could figure out where to place the sentiment. And then I could go ahead, pick up the sentiment with the lid of my MISTI, and then I made sure before stamping it with Versamark ink to remove all the die cut elements and the colored images to protect them from any possible accidents. I coated the stamped sentiment with black embossing powder, removed the excess, and then melted the embossing powder with my heat gun. As a last step, because I wanted my sentiment strip to run across the entire card front and I wanted that stitched detail to continue also on my sentiment strip, I decided to die cut it with the card front element builder dies. And then I used my guillotine trimmer to obtain a strip around my sentiment. At this point, everything was ready and I could go ahead and assemble my card. I glued the rectangle with the rounded corners on the top left portion of my card base, and then I layered the circle on top, having it towards the bottom right of the card base, so that I have a little bit of movement in my design. In order to glue the vellum and for the glue not to show up through the vellum, I added just some tiny little dabs of glue behind the sentiment. An alternative would be to cut the sentiment strip longer than the card front and to glue the excess vellum on the back of the card front, so to fold it over and secure it at the back. This way you're sure that you don't have issues with glue showing on the front of your card through the vellum, but I have to say that in this case it worked pretty nicely. So you saw I added glue behind the sentiment and at the very edge of the sentiment strip where the stitched detail is. And here is card number 1 all finished. For card number 2, I used the same set of supplies, but a different color palette and a slightly different design. I started by stamping the mug from the Mugs and Kisses stamp set by SugarPea Designs, again on Nina Solar White 110 pounds cardstock with Memento Tuxedo Black ink, and I'll be doing some more coloring with Nuvo alcohol markers. For this second card, I used teal blues and pinks. The set of blue colors that I used is the aquamarine, so I'm using marker number 369 for my shadows, 363 for my midtones, and 360 for my highlights. And for this part of the coloring, I sped up the video a little bit more to keep the whole video short. But you can use the tools on YouTube to slow it down in case you want to have a closer look at how I colored these images. For the scarf, I used warm grays from the Pebble Beach set. Again, these are Nuvo alcohol markers. And then I moved on and colored the other mug, for which I used the pinks in the Rosy Pinks marker set. I am starting again with number 453, laying it down where I think the shadows will be, and then blending that out first with number 451, and finally filling in the highlights with marker number 449. I used warm grays for the scarf of the second mug too, but I kept it a little bit lighter by using just 2 markers. And then, once I was done with the coloring, I die cut the images with the coordinating dies, and I also went ahead and did some more die cutting off camera of some different pattern papers from that same Sugar and Spice paper pad by SugarPea Designs. And as you can see, the die cut elements are exactly the same, so I have a circle, an A2 rectangle, and a smaller rectangle with rounded corners. But because the color palettes are different and because I will be arranging the elements in a slightly different way, the 2 cards will still look different from each other. Also in this case, I did some heat embossing with black embossing powder of one of the sentiments in the Mugs and Kisses stamp set by SugarPea Designs, and then I moved on and adhered my elements. This time around, my focal panel will be the rounded rectangle, so I glued down the circle first on the top left of my card, and then I layered that small rectangle on top. I used the same trick to hide the glue behind the sentiment and around the stitching details on the side of my sentiment strip, and then I could go ahead and adhere also these 2 adorable mugs. And throughout the whole process I've been using liquid glue because that gives me a little bit of wiggle room to move things in place and get them glued down exactly where I want them. I also decided to fill the top portion of this rectangular panel using these swirls of steam. These are also part of the SugarPea Designs Mugs and Kisses stamp set, and I stamped them with Memento Tuxedo Black ink. And here are the finished cards. I think they turned out absolutely adorable, and I think it's really interesting and fun to see how different they look, even if we used the same supplies and the same design elements. And that's it for today. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope I inspired you to create with the SugarPea Designs Mugs and Kisses stamp set. Don't forget to subscribe to the SugarPea Designs channel for more inspiration. Thank you all so much for stopping by, and have a great day.